So having said that, then you have to turn to the question of, well, maybe not everybody can afford this. Maybe not everybody's going to choose it. And so a related issue that comes up, and again, I seem to be touching on all of my own personal hot buttons here, but sometimes what lawyers will tell me in trainings or in conversations like this one is they'll say, I can do an interview with a client and I can make a pretty good judgment about whether they need coaching or whether they don't, whether they need a child specialist or whether they don't. And I say, bull, because first of all, needs in what sense? I would kind of defy you to find any family that's going through divorce and family restructuring that from the human needs perspective, and by that I'm referring really to that Maslow hierarchy of needs, every human being has needs, and those are the needs that we're dealing with in a much broader spectrum when we deliver interdisciplinary team resources in an integrated way. We're really moving up that pyramid and reaching higher and higher potential human needs as possibly being addressable at the table when we have the resources of a full team. What family doesn't need that? Every family needs that. What family, poor or rich, doesn't need financial consultant services? If you've got plenty of money, then what you benefit from is more sophisticated planning, tax planning, and maximizing resource allocation. If you don't have enough, budgeting and how you're going to make it are important issues, and people without resources often don't have the money management skills to deal with those questions well. And lawyers don't always either. And lawyers tend to charge more money and take more time to address issues that are outside our area of expertise. So it's a false economy to begin with. If you get the right person for the job, it's always going to cost less. The issues don't change. Any given family has the issues that they have. They've got the temperaments they've got. A lawyer dealing with non-legal issues won't do as good a job of it as a mental health person will do with the communications and emotional and parenting issues, and as a financial person will do with the financial issues. So I question even the economy argument. But I also question this sort of implicit assumption that some lawyers bring to the picture, that we are somehow qualified to do triage by being experienced family lawyers. And it is true that we start to get a seat of the pants sense sometimes for who are the really difficult people and who are the really high-functioning people. Although any experienced family lawyer will tell you that surprises happen all the time. The people that you thought were going to be a piece of cake to work with suddenly turn out to have astonishingly difficult problems. And the people who present initially as very, very difficult, maybe they do have difficult problems, but they may be much more amenable to input from professional helpers than we thought they were at first. So where I'm going with that is, and I discovered this in a case that I'm handling right now with a very trusted and experienced collaborative colleague as the other lawyer, and with a full interdisciplinary team on board of some of the most experienced practitioners in the San Francisco Bay Area, which translates to the world because we've been doing it longer than anywhere in terms of the team model. And this is a case that the other lawyer, David, and I, if you had asked us after the first few meetings that we had at the legal table, what, I talk about it in trainings as the conflict rating of the couple. If one is the highest functioning, really easiest, most emotionally mature people who need very, very little in the way of professional help to solve their own problems, and 5 is the couples who it doesn't matter who you are or what you bring to the table, they're going to have a war. They want one, they need one, and nothing that you can do is going to avert it. That's a 5. And of course the median point, the midpoint of the bell-shaped curve, is a 3. So David and I, working together initially with this couple, a professional couple, seemed very high functioning. We would have given it probably about a 2 if you had asked us to rate it. And as things unfolded and as the couple worked with their coaches and with their financial consultant, and I've written about this in a law review article recently, it turned into one of the most complex cases that either one of us has ever handled. And I've written this up in the article that I did, what we first thought this couple looked like as case A, and what it turned out was really going on as case B. It's the same case. We didn't know it. Case B is about as complex as you could hope to handle, maybe a 4, leaning over toward a 5. And the problem is that cases often present as case A. And sometimes we find out midstream that it's case B, and sometimes I'm going to bet you we never find out. And what that means is that we have not delivered good services to that family, because in the case that I'm talking about, this very challenging case, the couple was colluding with one another to hide from us 2 really serious sets of problems, one of which had to do with their children. 2 very troubled boys. They were embarrassed about it. They thought it was a failure of their parenting. They weren't fighting about it, and they didn't want anybody meddling with that situation. Those kids weren't going to get service delivery if we didn't have an interdisciplinary team on board to say, well, wait a minute, let's look a little more closely here. They weren't fighting about timeshare. They would have signed an agreement on day 1. But one of these kids was psychotic, and they didn't want anybody to look at that. The other thing that they were colluding about, for reasons that are peculiar, is that my client, the wife, a very high-functioning professional, she's a surgeon, had gone through 3 legal meetings in which we were going through complex stock options issues, and she hadn't understood a word that anybody said. And she was so embarrassed about that she was going to her husband afterward and asking him to translate what had happened at the meeting. And had we not had a financial consultant on board, I would have never known that my client was baffled by almost everything coming out of my mouth. I'm not a novice at this, and I'm pretty good at seat-of-the-pants triage. But if ever I doubted it, this has made it really clear to me that none of us can be so assured as to say, this couple needs this configuration, this couple needs this configuration. We've got a sort of a Rolls-Royce model, which is the one that Peggy Thompson and I wrote about in this book. And not everybody's going to choose it, and not everybody's going to be able to afford it, and not every community is going to have the resources. But to say that a couple doesn't need it, I'd like to see the evidence for that.